But
Yeah. So moving along, one of the players that we had kind of broken down going through the draft process, one of the top 30 visits, or just they're calling it 30 visits now, for the Packers was Shemar Stewart. And if you guys listened to our show during the draft process, that was the one player. It's like, man, he is high on our board, but I really don't want him to take him. Like, it's just like he's this ball of clay, right? It's kind of like it's like how we talked about LVN, right? But to me, it felt like Shemar Stewart was even more raw than LVM was coming out of college. Now, I think LVM turned it on at the end of the year. As you guys know, he got up around 15% pressure rate toward the end of the year. And I think he finished the year overall at like almost 12%, which is higher than Max Crosby, higher than TJ Watt. We talked about all that as well, right? So the Shemar Stewart stuff's interesting because this is about it's the lingo within the contract, right? Where if he gets suspended, if he gets in trouble and gets suspended, then they don't have to pay him his guaranteed money is essentially what it comes down to. All right. So whether you agree with that or disagree with that, I'm really kind of indifferent, but this was interesting. Okay. Sleeper Bengals tweeted this out. It says, according to, who is this? Russ Heltman, latest article, quote, Shemar Stewart has reportedly been working out with the Texas A&M football team this summer and could attempt to play at the school again if the Bengals contract isn't figured out. He would need to apply for a waiver with the NCAA in order to do so. Cincinnati would still hold his draft rights for the next season. Now, obviously, if he were to do that and it were to, the legalities were to work out and he goes back to college, I imagine the Bengals would try to trade his rights next year. I'm sure they wouldn't just button that up and everything's all peachy the next year. This was fascinating to me. And I just feel like we kind of dodged a bullet here. Now, I don't know if the Packers would have put the same. See, we don't know if the language is the same with the Packers. There are multiple teams that have the same language in these rookie contracts right now. I don't know. I don't think the Packers have it in, but if you guys know in the chat, let us know. We kind of dodged a bullet here, man. It feels like. Am I wrong there, man? Am I being too hard? And listen, I see in the chat too, the Bengals are a trash organization. Completely agree. They're one of the cheapest. They just now got an indoor practice facility last year.
Yeah,
right?
I remember watching them practice on the side of the highway as I drove by. Like, these poor guys are just underneath the overpass throwing the ball around. I mean, brutal. But yeah, I think I don't want to put it all on Shemar. I don't think it is all on him. I really don't. I think that I would say 70 is probably on Bengals, 70%, 30 on Shemar. But if it's not good for you to sign, you're not going to want to sign it. I think it is pretty wild that he's been working out with them and is attempting to go back. And when has that ever happened? When was the last time it did happen? But definitely gonna have to get that waiver because once they declare for the draft, they're not allowed back in, right? And once they sign that contract, but with NIL and everything, they probably can wiggle their way through that one and be like, well, he was signing deals or whatever and sponsorships, but he's going to be a graduate this year, so he's not going to have to go to school. So I mean, he just play ball. It would be awesome for him. You're going to love that, but that's tough, man. And then you go back into the league the next year. What are you going to be? Is it going to be a second round pick payment? Is that what you're going to get for a salary if you go there next year? I don't know. Maybe you get traded for a fourth rounder and that's where you get paid at. That's not, he's not going to love that either. So
right. Daryl in the chat. So tell me this, Clay. Why did Goody look the other way when passing on drafting defensive end Shemar Stewart? See, that's the 30 visits. When you hear the 30 visits, you got really two different types of 30 visits, in my opinion. You got some where it's like, hey, we really like this dude. Let's get him in here and kind of confirm what we saw, right? Mm-hmm. But then you got these other guys where it's like, hey, we got a few questions that, we don't – the draft, what am I trying to say? The draft analysis, the scouting reports and stuff suggest he is a high pick. Like Shemar Stewart obviously was a first-round talent.
Right.
But maybe you want to give him for 30 visit because you got a few questions, right? Like, I don't know about that. And I don't want to say most of the time, those guys, most of the time, those guys that it's in the latter category where it's like you've got a few questions and you're just hesitant, you can't pull the trigger on that yet. You get them in and they confirm what you were worried about. And you just go ahead and put them off, not necessarily take them off the board, but you kick them down to a third round grade or something like that, right? So That's what I think happened, Daryl. I think there was a little bit of that in there, man. I could be wrong, but Shemar Stewart's one of those guys, very, very, very low production. And it wasn't like with Gary, like when Gary came out of Michigan. That's the other thing I heard him saying. He played defensive end at Michigan. He played a lot inside. Like I had close ties to people that followed the Michigan program really, really close. When we drafted Rashawn Gary, I reached out to those guys. I'm like, hey, tell me about Gary. And they were like, hey, I'll tell you what you're going to get. The numbers don't look good. Selfless player. You can find clips where he's being blocked by 4 and 5 people, and he's walking them down the line of scrimmage and making a tackle. Like I could pull that play up. Like so, he's one of those dudes too that was highly scouted coming out. I think he was the number 1 prospect in the entire country. Rashawn Gary was that year. So it's a little bit different than Shemar Stewart's situation, where it's more athleticism as opposed to with Gary. It's I think he was one of the top prospects the entire time, right? So
Blake was saying here, Gary was like a 3.35 defensive end at University of Michigan. So there, I mean, you're next to a nose tackle basically, right? So you've got to play anywhere from 3 to 9, depending on where you want, your D line to kind of line up, and if you're walking the backers up, whatever you're doing. But yeah, I think we had Shemar Stewart as 3rd on the board with like a 16.3. So he was, I mean, we number-wise, RAS-wise, production held him back, so we thought it was a good idea. And like I said, it could really not be him. It really could just be the Bengals. And then, like Ryan was saying in his pod earlier with, Judkins, right? He had his issue. That's his second rounder, right? So I like Ryan's idea, man. You already messed it up by paying Schlesinger or whatever. Like, let's get all this taken care of and start getting these second rounders signed, because Belton needs to get there. Belton needs to be out there. But if he doesn't want it, cool. We got Travis Glover. No worries. We're ready to roll. But ideally, let's get Belton out there and get some reps going.
Yeah. United Bates says Shemar was taken before us at 17, right? He was drafted 17th. That's what I've got wrote down here too. I believe that's correct. So yeah, again, just wanted to point that out because that was an interesting story. I didn't mean to spend that much time on it, but I thought it was interesting because the league's changing. Like people would mention, we haven't signed Belton yet, right? Belton, the problem there is, and I blame Tim's boy, Jaden Higgins, right? I think it was Coach Lynn. Yeah, Belton has not signed either. So with Belton, it's about trying to get more guaranteed money because Higgins signed a fully guaranteed contract to the best of my knowledge. Jaden Higgins, 2nd round pick. So now everybody who was unsigned in the 2nd round went, whoa, everybody stop a minute. Let's see if we can get that too, right? So I think they'll work it out with Belton, but it's totally different from Shemar Stewart, where they're basically saying, hey, listen, we want to make sure that there's got to be a reason they're trying to put that in the contract too, right? There's got to be some kind of personal something behind the scenes that makes him a little bit hesitant on, boys, we better protect ourselves in case he does something that might get him in trouble.
And that could have been answered to Goody and the Packers on that 30 visit, right? I mean, they could have squared that away and said, all right, well, X-nay on that one, red line through the name. If he's there in the 7th round, we'll take a shot. But right now, so I mean, those are the things that we don't know about that we're kind of just taking in as we go, as we get information.
Yeah. So yeah, you're correct there, Coach. Belton still hasn't signed. I think he'll be in camp though. I think we'll get that one done too, man. So some other news. This kind of goes to the NFC North column here. I don't know if you've seen this or not, Emilio. Adam Schefter, actually Kevin Seifert at ESPN tweeted out, Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison's jury trial stemming from his 2024 DUI citation remains set for today in Superior Court of California. Addison has pleaded not guilty. Adam Schefter tweeted that out, tweeted it, and said, if convicted, Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison could be facing a baseline 3-game suspension per NFL policy. And again, we're a Packers show, but anything that happens in the North, we want to try to cover. This is all the stuff that's kind of hammering in right before camp.
Yep.
Jordan Addison's a good wide receiver. If the Vikings had to go 3 games without him, that's going to affect their production on offense, especially with a rookie quarterback and J.J. McCarthy stepping in there in place of Sam Darnold, who had, he was an MVP candidate for most of the year last year.
Right.
So, what do you think about that, though, man?
Yeah, I was listening to DJ and Buck, not particular on this, but they were saying, getting through the 4th of July, getting up into camp, you don't want to hear your team's name in the news. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be out there, though, like from in the dead time, you don't want to hear anything bad happen on the 4th, and you don't want to hear anything from the 4th until then. They're saying it's a downhill run after there to training camp and everything, but keep your team's name out of the, keep it out. You don't need it. We're not Jerry Jones. I get it. Any publicity is good, but right now, let's just keep our heads down. You see Tucker Craft, okay, perfect. You're in the gym doing your thing. You see everybody else out there working. You got Bird out there working. You got Jordan out there working. But not putting themselves into predicaments. And yeah, that's brutal. Terrible that happened. We don't want to see that. But dude, everything else, man, with the Vikings, I don't know. You got JJ, but you can't force feed him forever.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing too. I tip my cap to Justin Jefferson, right? Because that organization has not been the best one to play for, right? They've never won a championship, right? You had a quarterback that finally settled in. It's like that's the most success they've had at quarterback for a while now, right? Kirk Cousins had decent success, but what Sam Darnold did last year was really impressive working with KLC. And then all of a sudden he's gone. But but Justin Jefferson, he just kind of settles in and is like, hey, this is where I want to be. So I tip my cap to that kind of loyalty. I do, because that organization, man, I don't know. I feel like it took a step back. I could be wrong, but I feel like it took a step back. And there's some people that think, oh, they're going to take a step forward with J.J. McCarthy. Man, the guy's never taken a snap. Like, he didn't even get to practice with the team last year. He was on IR.
Right.
So he didn't even get to practice with the team. So
yeah, you get to go through a playbook, but you don't get game speed. You don't feel the snap. You don't get any reps. I mean, his arm, he could probably throw it a little bit, but he's not ready to roll. And the fact that they're saying that they're probably going to be better than that 14 wins they had last year, I highly, highly doubt that.
Yeah, for sure. Coach Lynn says Jefferson is a true professional. He really is, man. And working with the local kids and stuff and the camps and all the stuff he does in the community. I've got people that are, close family that have had to go to the huge hospital up there in Minneapolis, and talking about how Justin Jefferson's always around the hospital with the kids and stuff like that. You're spot on there, Coach. No way am I trying to dog them. And that's why I look at this Jordan Addison thing and it's like, man, that's one little thing that could upset the cart here early on. But obviously innocent till proven guilty. I don't care what team you play for. Right? If he's proven innocent, then move on, and it is the way it is. I know this. I'm not happy that any player, whether it's on a division rival or not, could have potentially been driving under the influence. We've seen many people lost their lives over that kind of irresponsible